Hi everyone, we're going to talk all about square roots today and estimating square roots. Now, the square root of a number are the two numbers that can multiply to create the number, but the number has to be the same. So the two square roots of a number are the same number multiplied by itself that can get you this larger number. So the square root of 64, what two numbers multiply to get you 64 and has to be the same would be 8. You can also say negative 8, because technically negative 8 times negative 8 is 64. Now, when we are just using the square root of 64 in a problem, we would never say negative 8 because we would always go with the positive root. It's assumed you go with the positive root. You could also write this as plus or minus 8. Square root of 25 would be 5 and negative 5. And it does not hurt you on all these lessons to write out your perfect squares. Writing those out can really help you, especially when we get to the estimating, which I'll do in a moment for you. So we're going to evaluate, and we're going to follow our order of operations. We're going to follow the please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, parentheses, and then exponents. Also, your square roots fall underneath your exponent category because square roots also, it's a fraction exponent. So 2 times the square root of 64 minus 5, we're going to do the square root of 64 first, which is 8. I'm going to put that in parentheses because the 2 is multiplied by whatever's in there. 2 times 8, 16. 16 minus 5 is 11. Now in the next one, we have a unique situation where you have a fraction and then a square root over the whole thing. That means the entire fraction is the square root of that. You can also break it into two mini square roots. If 144 and 25 can't go into each other evenly, which they do not, you can break it into two separate ones. Square root of 144 is 12, and the square root of 25 is 5. So 12 fifths, you can also write that as 2 and 2 fifths. Excuse me. In the next one, we're going to do parentheses first because order of operations, we're going to do parentheses. Square root of 16 is going to be 4. Square root of 121 is 11. 4 times 11, 44. And then times a negative 2. A negative times a positive is a negative 88. Then in the next section of lesson is when we're going to be estimating the square roots. These are not perfect squares. So down at the bottom, I'm going to quickly write down our perfect squares that we know. That's going to help us out. So if you already know them, you can kind of fast forward this part, but 1 times 1 is 1, 2 times 2 is 4, 3 times 3 is 9, 4 times 4 is 16, 5 times 5 is 25, 36, 49, 64, 81, 100, and then we get to some big ones, 121, 144, 169, and 196, 225. So now we're going to start estimating the square root. So the square root of 17 we know is somewhere between the square root of 16 and the square root of 25 because that's where 17 falls. So to kind of show my work here, I'm going to have negative square root of 16 because we know that one, and negative square root of 25 because we know that one as well. All you have to do, all the further you have to go in these problems is just tell me what those square roots are, and we know that the negative square root of 17 is somewhere in between those. So we know it's going to be between negative 4, somewhere between negative 4 and negative 5. And if you'd like to write it as negative 5, negative 4, that's okay too. If you want to do it from littlest to biggest is fine. We're going to do the same for the other two, excuse me. Square root of 38 we know is going to be somewhere between the square root of 36 and the square root of 49. And it's important for you to have the square roots with those numbers. You can't just write down 36 and 49 because it's not between 36 and 49. It's between the square root of 36 and the square root of 49, which is 6 and 7. Square root of 36 is 6, square root of 49 is 7. And then 67, the square root of 67 is somewhere between the square root of 64 and the square root of 81, which is 8 and 9.